Great. Well, thanks everyone. So what I'm going to do today is go through my own experience with AI, the work we've done. I'm hoping that today will really ground a whole lot of thinking in some actual case studies. So any case study that I speak to today, I'm also going to show you some of the things that we've built. It's all stuff that I've been personally involved with, led, or been accountable for. So yeah, I'll be able to answer any questions about them. So today we're going to go through what you already know. We have CIOs on this call, so I'm assuming that I'm not going to waste your time repeating kind of what generative AI is. I will do some grounding, but I'm assuming that you already know quite a lot. I'm going to give you our own point of view on how we like to think about AI. I think it's a really good way to think about it. Also, how systems work in AI, we see coming together really, really well, and where most of the value is coming from. We'll also talk about how we measure AI. There's a lot of the work that we've been doing has been doing that, and I'm hoping to actually spend at least half of the time going through six different case studies of AI implementations that I've been involved with, and then finally, I'd also like to pitch some of our services because I really think that we can help you get started really, really quickly. So just a bit about me. My name's David Naude, based here in Melbourne, in Australia. So I've had quite a varied career. I worked at NAB actually as a banker right at the beginning of my career before making a change and joining the world of tech consulting at Accenture before joining a startup called Cloud Sherpas, which was eventually acquired by Accenture as well. So kind of went full circle there. My roles have typically been right at that intersection of tech and business, which is why something like this is I'm presenting on this topic today. It's really the business application of the technology. I left Accenture in December to start a company called Pathfinder AI, and we're 7 weeks old now. And it's really to solve be able to deliver the tech in a very different way. And I'll explain a bit about that in a second. Please add me on LinkedIn, and also please subscribe to a newsletter called The Path. The QR codes are there for both of those. The Path is a weekly newsletter on a Friday that we deliver, meaning to really give you tangible business, practical AI advice of how to get started. Today's newsletter was specifically on all the things you can do with AI if you have a whole lot of bad data within your organization. There's still a lot of things that you can use. Just a bit of a pitch here for Pathfinder and our services there. I won't labor this point. We're built around people, so we really want to be centered on the employee. We're independent, so we're not trying to push any AWS or Google or Salesforce or Microsoft product. We use AI in our consulting process. We've automated a lot of the steps using AI. So we focus on metrics that matter. We try to change things like how long a call takes, and many other metrics like that. And we're very much around rapid test and learn. So we want to build things, showcase it, get feedback. And we're really important focus on the change management process. We want to have a rollout process that our users absolutely love. And where we consider ourselves an AI technology business and experience execution engine, and we have a fantastic partner ecosystem to really deliver any kind of AI implementation with the latest technology that's possible. So very happy to talk more about that later. So what you already know, Gen AI is all the buzz. We haven't stopped talking about it for at least a year now. Actually, longer than a year since ChatGPT was released in 2022. 2022. ChatGPT is a big deal. It still is. It still is the most performant, and is still leading everything. If it's not ChatGPT, it's OpenAI Sora, or more recently Google Gemini, but mostly for all the wrong reasons. What you also know is that your staff are already using it, but mostly out of policy. So every time I say this sentence, I always get a lot of nods. You walk down any corporate corridor and ChatGPT is open on every second laptop. And even though the policy is you're not allowed to put sensitive information in there, it's going in there. It absolutely is. People are writing emails in there saying, can you write an email that's offering a product at this cost to this person and tailoring it? That's going in there. So it's not really about whether you should use it or not. Some of it is let's make sure we can use it safely within our organization and actually get the benefit for all those other people that aren't using it, showing them how to do that. There's a lot of confusion around which AI do I use? Do I just wait for the inbuilt things, or do I pick one? Does it all centralize? There's a lot of emerging kind of architectures there. Google, Salesforce, Microsoft, Adobe, Oracle, SAP, they all have their AI plays. There's significant FOMO, fear of missing out. So I need to get AI. I'm not sure what I'm going to use it for, but I know that I need it. Or what a lot of our work came from at Accenture was my boss told me to come up with an AI point of view by next week. Can you help? Or I need to present to the board tomorrow on AI. Can you help? So there's a lot of that that's driving a lot of interest. There is such a mountain of promise. It's promise. It's most people don't know what's behind it. They just know that it's promising a lot of things, good and all bad. But mostly businesses are still overwhelmed and confused about what it means and mostly where to start. So for the average business executive, they still struggle to think beyond ChatGPT. So they see it drafting an email really well. They see it doing drafting a contract and assumptions in the contract and all that really well. But outside of that ChatGPT interface or what they see as an add-on on like Microsoft Copilot, they struggle to kind of visualize what does this mean for my organization and how do I actually get cracking with this? How do we not just get stuck in the loop of strategy? So that's really one of the reasons why I wanted to start this business is I wanted to really focus on that. So I'm just going to give you my own grounding on AI. There's lots of different models out there. I really like this one. It's definitely my favorite approach to describing and understanding AI. The first layer is it's the type of content. So we have text, code, images, video, audio, 3D, other things like molecular structures, biology, and whatever comes next. We've obviously seen a lot of advancements recently in the video space. Things like Sora have been honestly just mind blowing seeing all of these things come together. I'm sure many of you have seen recently taking a static image of Audrey Hepburn and taking an Ed Sheeran song and then making that static in an image actually sing an Ed Sheeran song, but it's a photorealistic video now. And it's just incredible the pace that these things are moving at. So you've got your type of content. The next layer we call the model layer or the foundation layer. This is the brain. This is the secret source of everything that drives all of the amazing AI that we've seen recently. This list is obviously not exhaustive. I've really just include the ones that most people have heard of on here today. But this extends to well over 500,000 foundation models that you can get off of open source marketplaces like Hugging Face today. This is the real game changer was really these models are what have enabled so much for us. And in many ways, some people take offense at this. They've replaced the need for a data scientist. So the large language model, foundation model, you don't need a data scientist to do this anymore. You really just need an engineer to interact with the foundation model. And we all know for every 50 engineers you have, you might have one data scientist, or you might not. You might not have any, but we all have engineers. So that's opened up so much capability. The model data is really important. So model data is if you're asking for a list of something, it's come from somewhere. It's learned that from somewhere. And so it's typically a web scrape. It's books out of copyright, but also licensed content. It's close to there's a deal being brokered at the moment between Reddit and also WordPress with OpenAI to now to actually use all of that information to put it into the body of knowledge as well. So all the things that are appearing there comes from these data sources. So you've got this brain and the content that trained that brain. The top layer is the application layer. So this is where we use it. The actual interface we use it, and also the uses that we use it for. So ChatGPT is a chat interface, but it's still being driven by that underlying brain. And so is Microsoft Copilot. Even GitHub Copilot is mostly using a GPT-4 and 3.5 backend to drive all of that. And then all of the things that you can use it for. So you can use it to create emails, chat and email support, generate code, generate documentation, all of these different things. If everybody has these foundation models and accessible through an API at very low cost, the differentiator for an organization will be what you bring to it. That is absolutely the game changer. If an organization wants to really take advantage of AI, they need to bring something that the models don't already have, and that's in your own information. So if you own a network of pet food stores, you have all sorts of insight into what types of products people buy for their pets, when they buy it, what different combinations work well, all of these things. By adding your own knowledge base to the large language model, you're now able to do things like a type of marketing that you weren't able to do before, nor what your competitors can do. You can create all sorts of new products. You can also personalize on the website, the e-commerce, surfacing that information in the appropriate order. So that's where we're going to see a lot of differentiation. It's also the reason why many believe that even though OpenAI has a massive head start, that Google is going to catch up and overtake them significantly because Google has so much data that OpenAI doesn't have, nor that they can get with their relationship with Microsoft. They have your email, they have your maps, they have your web browsing information, they have many people's calendars, they have all of these different things. So the future of a large language model that's able to create content for you based on all of this information it knows about you is incredibly powerful. But if you can bring your own thing to it as well, obviously that's going to help you get ahead. So this is a model that we've come up with. It's how to think about how AI is felt within your organization. It's three categories. It's invisible, it's assistive, and it's integral. So invisible is where you don't actually see the AI. It's hidden. The great thing about that is there's no change management or anything like that required because it's completely hidden. The most obvious example of this is not a new one. It's spam filtering. You only know that your spam filter hasn't worked when you get a spam message or when somebody contacts you to say, I sent you an email, why haven't you replied? And you find it in your spam inbox. So as much as you can put things into invisible, the better. Things like being able to direct a call to the right place based on an email, a support agent based on the context of an email. That's something that's invisible. Nobody really sees it. And if you get it wrong, it's okay. It just gets kind of, the person will redirect it to the right area. The next one is the chat GPT world. This is assistive. It doesn't replace you. It makes it easier for you to do your job. So I can ask a chatbot, what's your leave policy? And am I allowed to take sick leave whilst I'm on annual leave? And it'll give you that answer. But you could have got that answer anyways from going to the different portals. So it helps you, but it doesn't necessarily replace you. Now, obviously, the different speeds at which it helps you depends on how familiar you are with the tool and also how well the tool has been configured for your use. So you don't expect a user to learn prompt engineering and all of that. That's that middle pillar. The third pillar is integral. This is where it gives you superpowers and allows you to do things you simply cannot do without the AI. This is things like allowing a call center agent who's English speak in Mandarin to a customer. At the beginning, this is all chat, but with how quickly audio is moving, it's very soon. In fact, I'd be blown away if the first trials aren't happening this year, where we have somebody speaking on the phone in English to somebody in Mandarin, and they're speaking in Mandarin, and it's a fluent conversation, maybe with a small lag, but it's a fluent conversation. It's being able to give your full stack Java engineer the ability to write in COBOL so that you're not no longer single point dependent on a COBOL engineer who's probably going to retire in the next 2 years or should have retired in the last five. So it's giving them superpowers. It's allowing um, a much more junior contract lawyer actually give a whole lot of very important contract markup that typically would have had to rely on somebody a lot more senior, which has probably led to a lot of delays to getting work done. So integral is really where it gives you those superpowers. And it's also no surprise that the change management effort is very different for each of these. So invisible, there's basically no change management effort. It's you just basically need to train people on what do you do when it's not working the way you expected. What many people are completely overlooking at this point is the change management effort for assistive. So I've seen this myself. When I was at Accenture, we organized 50 licenses of ChatGPT Enterprise for people in Australia. I was so excited. Obviously, I'm an AI guy. I was using these things every day. What I found was out of the 50, maybe five of them were using them regularly. Most had used it once or twice, or maybe now and again. And then there was a big group, maybe 10 of them, that had never even logged in. So it was a complete typical bell curve. And I asked one of them, how are you finding ChatGPT? And they said, oh, it's pretty good. I used it to write a cold outreach email to this client I'm trying to get an email, a meeting with, but it was a bit salesy. And then that led them to stop. They didn't try again. I said, you actually just literally have to tell ChatGPT that it's too salesy, and then it will rewrite it. So there's a big change management effort that's required there. The thing that we all need to realize, though, is we need the change management effort, but our kids and grandkids definitely won't. They're going to operate in this universe. I remember early in my career when I was at NAB, there was a banker that was recounting his weekend at dinner, and he said that he had gotten into a massive argument over the date something had happened, some historical event, and basically it spoiled the whole family dinner. They were arguing with each other, and I was a grad, and I just said, Why don't you just Google it, like to see what the answer is?" And he paused for a second and thought, "Yeah, I don't know why. We didn't think of that." Um, he just wasn't used to doing that. It was a very new behavior for him to Google the internet for an answer to something. That is absolutely what the coming generation is going to treat these tools as. They're going to expect that you just have AI, and having to log into Workday to submit a leave request or get a pay slip or something like that is absolutely not going to be what the future generation expects. You're just going to ask it, can I log a leave request? Sure. Which days? Yeah, great, done. And it does all the interactions for you. So one thing we've also been doing is diving very deeply into the actual business problems where AI can help. Now, this is definitely not an exhaustive list. We're a new company. We're very busy. We're continuing to build it out, but we're matching AI tools and approaches and rollout approaches with actual real business problems. So things like not recognizing market trends. I will actually show you an example of that today, of a tool that we've built that we're working with a private equity group that they can monitor different advancements. The same thing can be for B2B sales and all of that. Things like analyzing your competitors, assessing your suppliers. I mean, every CIO spends a lot of time um, some part of a procurement process. I mean, wouldn't it be better if there's a better way that you can assess all of that and automate it? Sales, long deal cycle times, highly administrative processes. So what we try to do is first start here. And when a back office is such a great opportunity for that, because it's the engine room of an enterprise. So the way an order is fulfilled within any company really dictates most of how a company operates. Yes, you have your sales in the front end, you have your support at the back end, but it's that whole process that makes such a big difference. So things like invoicing, payments processing, call center, all of that is just ripe for a lot of AI innovation in that space. Now, what I'd like to do now is show you a few examples, and then I'm really going to spend probably a good 10 minutes walking through six different case studies. So these are two tools that we've recently built. This first one is an example of using AI to do very broad market research. And in this example, I'm going to dive into specifically how. Sorry, give me 1 second. I can just narrate this myself. So in this example, this is for a private equity group. They they want to look at sustainability consulting services in Australia. So they want to try to figure out which firms should they dive into and look at investing in, but also how is the sustainability services market structured in Australia. So forgive the user interface; it's all very new that we're still working on. We've built a tool with one of our partners called Magic Map. And in here, you're searching for something like sustainability consulting firms in Australia. I'll just pause here for a second. You can see in this tool, we wanted to see where does all the best data come from? And it wasn't just in the GPT-4 and 3.5 model. It's also in Mistral. It's also in Perplexity. Some of it will come out of Google. It's in Cohere. But what it's doing here, so this is without a web search. It's purely what's in the in the underlying data scrape. It's finding as much information as it can. So it's found 98 companies so far, and in the end, it finds 134. You can see only a bit came from 3.5 and 4. All the rest came from everything else. And now, if you hover over a particular item, we're working on the user interface, but you'll get the gist here. It's telling you as much as it can about morphosis. It tells you a bit about here. It's trying to pull actual specific data out of it as well, like the number of employees, the date it was founded, the location. So it's trying to structure that unstructured data. And what it'll do next is skip forward. We've been able to get these tools to create beautiful, very big visualizations of trying to describe large bodies of knowledge. So in here, in this example, we've been able to get it to describe that industry, so sustainability services in Australia. And it's showing you lots of different market analysis, the types of services that are offered in the industry, different technological advancements, the regulatory environment. And so this has been one of those types of tools that somebody would give a sales assistant to go and research, whereas now you can just run this, and it's going to be a lot broader and a lot wider, and also a lot faster than you otherwise would have. What it also allows us to do is to select different tools, different target companies. And the same thing can be used for a CIO when they're assessing different tools, suppliers, products. You could say something like, what are cybersecurity platforms created in the last 3 years? Because you're trying to get up to speed with new advancements in the market, and it'll do the same type of thing. What we also do here is you're able to export the information. It arrives first with logos of all of the ones I've selected. So if you're needing to create some kind of report, but then here it's just delivered it as a CSV, but you can really picture it as an API. So how we're able to take this rich information and integrate it into lots of other systems. The next one that will interest you is this one is really for a lot of document generation heavy processes, things like the financial planning industry, any big legal companies, research, a lot of that activity we can now automate using AI as well. And this example here, this is specifically for private equity and venture capital funds. But this is basically replacing the process of creating a very thorough researched investment memo that would typically take a week, and reduce that activity to an hour. And here I'll show it to you in action. So in this example here, if I wanted to make a potential acquisition or investment in a company called SkyCurrent, which is a robotics company in the States, what our tool does is first it downloads as much information as it can about SkyCurrent. So it scrapes the web. We have this concept of a data room where you put everything into the data room that you know about them. So you might have your own information about SkyCurrent, but it's also going to do lots of rich external searches. What it's doing here on the left is you can see a bit about how the sausage is made here. It's extracting all the information that it's found. It's now doing an external search and finding as much information about SkyCurrent, also their competitors. So looking at things like media releases, articles, and all of that. And it's compiling a very thorough investment memo for them. It's also got all of the different external references as well. Now, just keep your eye on the bottom right here. What's happened here, and this is the just how incredible these tools are when you combine them all together. It's scanned all of the annual reports. It's grabbed the information. It's normalized the data. And now it's creating all of the specific charts to measure SkyCurrent and benchmark them against their competitors. And it's creating all of those specific charts, which will then be populated into, in this case, a Google slide template, but we also now have a PowerPoint add-on that we're working on for this too. And now what it's doing is it's creating the entire investment briefing as well. So you can see how it's populated all of this automatically. So it's created the executive summary. It's looked at the competitors. It's given a company overview, a product overview, but also created some great tables where it compares SkyCurrent's features with the rest. Moving on here, it gives a very competitive overview. It gives us a summary of all of the competitors, their logos, and a bigger version of this table. And then we've also been able to get it to create a leadership team structure as well. The new version of this has it pulling information from LinkedIn as well. So it actually has the pictures and all of that, but it's been able to create this team structure too, based on all the information it's found. And then finally, it's giving a very detailed financial and business analysis too. And to wrap that all up, it lists, this is just one page of the references. There's actually over three of hundreds of references where it got all of that information. So you can see just how incredibly powerful that is to be able to say, hey, I need to do a deep dive on this company, product, whatever, and to be able to give you something incredibly thorough that combines external information, large language model information, and your own information, and outputting it in a format that's specific to your company. So what I'll spend the next kind of 8 minutes on is going through these case studies, and then we're just going to have a conversation about what resonates for you, which areas you'd like to know more about. But these are all ones that I've been personally involved in, delivered, or even originated and sourced these opportunities as well. So the first one is credit risk analysis, basically taking from 1 week to 1 minute. So this was for a tier 2 bank in Australia. They're still a major bank, one that everybody would know who their name is. At that point, the problem that they had is they needed to, if they wanted to do some analysis of interest rate changes, particularly when people were rolling off of fixed interest rates that were very low to much higher interest rates, it would take about a week, actually longer. They said 2-3 weeks potentially sometimes to get a response from their data team. So you'd say, can I get information on all the loans that are expiring in these postcodes that meet this criteria, such as they're a high risk category, it's a high loan, it's rolling off of an interest only loan and a fixed interest rate, etc. That would take a while to get that information. And when they did get that information, it was either as a static type of report within something like Power BI, but actually more commonly it was a presentation and a CSV that was sent to them. We actually strung that all together, and this was it was using the Google platform in this example. So you could just ask. So you would just ask, can you show me all the loans with this in this postcode that are expiring at the end of this month? And by asking that question, it would convert it into a whole lot of SQL type queries, grab the information, surface it, and then you can perform operations on it. So you could ask things like, can you show it to me as a time series? Can you now just focus on this? So conversational data, I think, is going to be something that is going to be tremendously powerful and expected of these platforms in the future. The next one was one that this was a pet project of mine, one that I really liked. This is for a company that actually plays a major role in Australia's infrastructure. And they had 30 years worth of old Delphi code running all of this infrastructure. I hadn't heard the word Delphi since I did my high school project. I had not heard it since then, when we did Delphi and Pascal at high school, and then found out that 30 years of infrastructure is running on this. And the answer that they needed to modernize this, and the answer was, well, there's only 2 people within the organization who know this code, and the code's not well written, it's not particularly well documented. How are we gonna solve this? And they thought, well, let's hire a team of engineers to spend the next year going through all this code and documenting it. Not a great job. They're going to hate every minute of it, and they're probably not going to do a great job. So I think anybody who's gone all in on AI has had an oh my goodness moment. This was it for me, where we started playing with putting this Delphi through GPT-4 and coming up with functional and technical specifications. And we tried to see just how far we could push it. So at the beginning, we would get it to write business rules, and pull out things like validation rules, criteria, all of that. Then we said, okay, well, can you take a punt at describing the interface? And it would try to do that. Then can you write a day in the life of, oh no, sorry, how would a user use this? And it would try to describe a hypothetical situation. We gave it a whole lot of context that would help it do that. And then in the end, we're able to get completely automated functional and technical specifications generated. Now, it wasn't a push a button and it's done. It still was validated by a developer, but it's a much faster and better process than it would have been typically. So, really high impact. And that was actually the moment where I thought, okay, I'm going all in on AI. This is the start of something very different. It wasn't ChatGPT that did that for me. It was old Delphi code. Next one is for a major hospital chain, private hospital group, where if you go and get surgery, at the end of all of that, there's a payment back office process that is very challenging. They basically go through every single artifact during your stay. So every blood test, every surgery, every medication, and there's a person that goes through each of these documents, matches that document to a payer code, which then goes off to Medicare and also to the insurer. Um, that process is horrendous. It's done by an outsourced service. It's all manual, and a lot of these things are also handwritten, depending on the doctor. So it's really, really difficult. This was a project that took a couple of months. It was early days of GPT, a lot of test and learn. But the idea was that it wouldn't automate the whole thing. Maybe that's what it'll get to. At the beginning, it'll pre-populate most of it. So instead of the person who's assessing all of these documents, they see a list of all the documents in a tool and the matched code automatically. And it had basically spared a 3-week backlog to a day, because now it's more checking somebody's work, or just completing the exception where it wasn't able to recognize it or wasn't a clear enough match, and then do that. So massive improvement there, and such a big improvement, and ended up showing at least the same accuracy as somebody who had manually matched it, because they also get it wrong occasionally. Yeah, now potentially even better. So the next one is one that would be familiar for all of you. It's managing IT support. So in this example, there's so many problems that arise either by a user or from infrastructure. So the idea was, how could we use AI across the entire ecosystem of software and hardware infrastructure service management? So we used it in many different areas. One was when somebody raised an issue. This was in ServiceNow. ServiceNow had some basic tooling that helped with this. And there would be a frequently asked questions, or like a have you tried rebooting section, which people typically wouldn't actually use. It would often be the technician that helps with that. We thought, okay, well, what if when they submit this, we grab it, the AI grabs it, looks at it, looks at potential root causes and solutions, and then pings the person on Teams to see if they've tried something. So that's basically what it did. It would read this and try find a potential answer or a potential additional question. Maybe they've just written something absolutely rubbish in the description. My computer's not working, full stop. Not nearly enough information. Eventually, ServiceNow will really help you do this in the tool. But what we were doing is it would ping the person for more information in Teams. They would complete that or try it, and they would basically have a conversation there, which would then be stamped back into ServiceNow. We saw a major reduction in needing to do additional activity there. We then took that further and looked at things like log files was a huge one for us. Whenever there was a big infrastructure problem, a big part of what the IT team had to do was go through a lot of log files. Even though they had Splunk and all the rest, the level of sophistication that it got up to was going through these log files and basically running these big macros that they'd created to try and isolate the problem. But if you actually put all these log files through a large language model and you describe the type of thing you're looking for, it will do a very good job of assessing what are the likely log records that are informing the problem. And we had a very basic way of doing that. It was basically over over email. So when something happened, there would be a daily email that would be sent saying, "We've gone through everything. Here are some likely log records for you to investigate further." We also tried to add a few more capabilities to that as well, including having agents when you're capturing the information on a voice call. The agent actually, this was using AWS or Amazon Connect, as the person who is speaking to the help desk agent, it's doing the real-time voice translation, but then also it's suggesting questions to ask based on historical data, and it's also suggesting possible resolutions. So you can see how all the AI and semantic data is coming together there, because you're able to take the voice to text once it's in text format, even in real time. You're able to query that information over all of your data sources and then surface that back as well. Very custom solution. I think at some point there will be a provider that just provides all of this automatically. We have to actually stitch lots of different things together. The next one was much more kind of a bespoke one-off activity thing, which was taking over 1,000 pages of legal documentation for a bank and simplifying all of it. Now, the backstory of this is they were under pressure from the regulator and also their customers to make their legal documentation, specifically their loan agreements and the credit agreements, a lot simpler, because it was too legalese. It was really verbose, like really big contracts. And the whole reason why they didn't do that is because it was so hard coded and ingrained in their very old document generation tool that they feared it would break. Like once you started unraveling that thing, it would break. So it was time to decommission this tool and to go to something new. And they thought, okay, this is the time to be able to rewrite all these things. Of course, what lawyers and contract managers have spare capacity to all of a sudden go through 1,000 pages and rewrite it and all of that. So we started playing with the concept of, we want all these documents to be readable by an 18-year-old or 80-year-old who has English as a second language, but it still needs to be legally enforceable. So we first started playing with putting it through GPT-4 just for an audit. So it created these incredible tables that would show a critique on the documentation. So it would say, you've referenced this thing more than once. This sentence here is ambiguous. You could compress this paragraph to this sentence. It was basically a very long table, a CSV that it would produce. After that, we started playing with taking a particular portion and compressing it, that was, yeah, again, very mind blowing seeing that happen. That was just with one document. You can imagine now going across an entire span of documents where you're taking literally 1,000 pages worth of documentation from all sorts of different documents, and you're checking it for consistency across all of them. Maybe in one you refer to customers as clients and another is customers. All of that type of activity you're able to do at scale. And the final one is this is for a major telco, and this is easily saving the call center 500 hours a day. That's an absolutely conservative estimate. So it's one of the major telcos. A lot of phone calls every day. This was actually before GPT-4 and 3.5, so we were able to move the large language models to that, but we were using the early versions of those equivalents from probably 2022 early. And this is to summarize calls. So we took a very conservative approach there. We first started with small squads, but the idea was to be able to summarize the entire phone conversation in a very simple, compliant way, because it was taking the agent roughly 2 minutes at the end of the call to summarize the phone call. Very, very common use case. Where they documented most of the phone call before that was in a combination of the notepad in front of them, literally Microsoft Notepad open on the computer. We saw one example of a napkin on somebody's desk where they were writing their notes there. So really difficult. And what we also found is they were writing things in the summary that didn't actually happen. Now, maybe that, like, they would say something, I did an ID verification check, but they hadn't. maybe they just forgot at the beginning of the call. So we actually found the compliance went up as well. And by the end, we had 94% of the summarizations were accepted in whole by the agent. They still get a moment to review and either change it or accept it or write it all again. And had a really good accuracy as well. So I think we're pretty much bang on time of what we initially wanted, which was a good 15 minutes at the end to kind of discuss Q&A. Oh, sorry, one final thing. So this is we're a new business. But we're a new brand, but we're not new. So we've got an excellent engineering network, also consulting network, and we're really high value, high impact. And for this group, I'd really like to offer the opportunity to get a big win by the end of March. But if it's in April, anytime, doesn't matter. But we really like doing things fast and quick. And I'd like to offer you a good approach to get going on your AI journey if you haven't started, or to accelerate it. So there's four options I think that make sense to start with. One is if you're a Microsoft shop, we've got a fantastic Microsoft Copilot approach. We've just delivered one now with Copilot Studio. So if you want to get up and running and run a pilot with Copilot Studio and get a couple of use cases done, you can start there. Also, if that's going to be too hard, because for some people it is, because their Microsoft environment is so locked down, we can also just do it with ChatGPT Enterprise. We build GPTs. We basically customize ChatGPT, including some operations that perform updates in certain systems or access information from different systems. There's fantastic low hanging fruit that you can do with ChatGPT as well. Or if you wanted something bespoke and custom, we've also got a very good user interface for doing custom co-pilots where you can have your own buttons, your own feedback mechanisms, your own templates. And the final one is where you need a specific custom AI tool, like a call summarizer, a contract critiquer, that type of thing as well. But the view is that we would really try and do something by the end of March. We'd like to extend an offer for just under $24,000 to get this going. And for that, it's really high impact. We use AI in this process to do our discovery and our design. We do a lot of our requirements gathering technique through bots that actually have conversations with your end users to extract the information. We're going to roll it out and test it with a pilot group. We're going to make a couple of iterations, and then we're going to get you a board-ready report of the pilot findings and outcomes and next steps. We're ex-Accenture. We're obviously very familiar with creating very senior reports. But if you really wanted to say to your CEO, your C-suite team, your board, whatever, this is what we've done. We're going to give you an absolute cracking report of this AI experiment and also your outcomes from it and what you'd like to do next. So please reach out to me if you'd like to proceed and talk about that. And of course, everything else. I mean, we can really help you with everything.